Ian has put together a message for us tonight, and he talked to me a little bit about today, and it's going to be an awesome message. I've known Ian. Actually, Ian gave his life to Jesus. I was able to pray with him on my patio on the night of my daughter's prom, right? It's not really a prom. What was it? Senior night. So are you bitter about that, Jesse? Jesse, are you bitter about that? Is that why you're sitting over there? Yeah. So it wasn't really a date. It was a friend date kind of thing, But that night, Ian started talking to me about, his heart and, and just stuff that he was processing. And I remember it was raining that night, kind of raining. We're standing out there next to my fish pond, and Ian gave his life to Jesus. And my God, I have been friends with this couple for so many years now. And I just thank God for the way they've grown and developed and the way they've been faithful to my family in this church and the way they've been faithful to Jesus and to each other. And so I want you guys to put your hands together and thank God for Ian as he comes and gives this message tonight.
Thanks. I don't know if you guys noticed, but right before we came, what's my password? Anyway. Long story short, I'm a little nervous. I don't know why I'm nervous because I've spoken here a few times, but I'm a little nervous. It's chilly, and I kind of have to pee. So it's if you hear my voice cracking, it's not because I'm crying or anything or emotional. It's because I'm a little nervous and I have to pee, and it's cold. But so I kind of want to give you a little narrative of how I got to here where I'm at. Back in 2014, if you remember, if you were here on Sunday and you heard Jesse's message about the passion trap, I was in that passion trap. And sometimes I would lie awake at night wondering, Hashim, quit texting me. I would lie awake at night and I was just ask God, why am I here? What am I doing? I'm just kind of going through life and learning what it means to be a Christian and stuff. So I was kind of in that passion trap. And so one day, I went to some message at the church in Harrisonburg that we used to go visit sometimes, for the Friday Night Fire music stuff. Any of y'all part of that? I don't know. But anyway, Chuck spoke there one time, and that was the first time I ever heard about the Here to There book. Just curious, has anybody done the Here to There book? Yeah, for you guys? So he was talking about being productive and planning out your year and stuff. And I was like, cool. So I did that. And the first time I went through it was asked me really hard questions what's your dream? What's this? It told me about 9 equities in my life. And it said, what's your plan for your... I was like, 9 equities? I never even thought about half of these in my entire life. So I went through them. And when it asked me about my dream, I was like, I don't know what my dream is. I'm just, trying to understand all of this. And it's crazy to think, but I spent 7 consecutive hours going through that plan my first time I went through it. And at the end of it is when God gave me my dream. For the first time is my first time that God gave me a real dream. And he said a few things to me during that time. But one thing in specific, it was hey, one of your things you're going to do is you're going to go to different countries and you're going to be developed and learn how to do stuff. So I know that's really bad, bad way of putting it, but that's how it went down. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I was thinking in a couple months I was going to be going. Well, fast forward 3 years later is when finally, in my head, I had the right mindset enough for when Corey asked me to come, hey, do you want to come to Peru? For some reason, at that moment, it clicked. And I was like, yeah, I can go to Peru. And I was supposed to really only go there for 1 month, and it ended up turning into 3 months, and then ended up turning into a half a year, and turned it up into 2 seasons of my life being in Peru. It's crazy that it took 3 years for that buffering time for all of that stuff to even happen. And, I spent those years really, really fighting, focusing on that dream. And like, if any of you have had a dream here in this area, like, you know what I'm talking about. You have to fight to really hang on to your dream. Sometimes you have to talk yourself out of giving up on that dream. For some reason, when I got hold of that dream, I knew that God said that, and even when I wanted to give it up, I couldn't bring myself to give it up. And I know some of you guys have the same thing. And this, if you notice, I'm referencing to Jesse's message on Sunday. So I had to focus on the dream. Through those years, I had to feed my faith and the faith of those around me. Just learning how to speak and do all this stuff, playing on the worship team and learning how to be faithful and all that stuff. And then I practiced in flourishing in everything that I was a part of. And I'm not saying that I was the best or that I succeeded in everything, but my definition of flourishing is giving everything your honest effort. Everything that you put your hands to, if you give it your honest effort, I feel like that's all that God's asking you to do. So after those 3 years, we finally left to Peru. And if you guys remember, like, my last message before I went to Peru the first time, it was like really emotional for me. I don't know. Any of you guys remember that? Yeah. So, I don't know. It was just, when you know a season is changing, you know that season is changing. And that was a moment where it was like, I don't know. Now I'm referencing Chuck's message. I was birthed, I was coming out of the larva stage into a caterpillar stage. So, the last year, or that transitioning period, was me being like a caterpillar or whatever, and just kind of like munching on leaves and being my fat, happy self, kind of taking in everything and learning stuff. The second half of last year in Peru was me actually entering I can't talk tonight, man. I don't know what's up with my tongue. It's like sticking to the roof of my mouth. But, so I enter this cocoon stage, and I come back from Peru, and I was actually talking to a buddy of mine yesterday at the farmhouse. He was like, yeah, it was kind of weird when you first came back from Peru. It seemed like you were bummed or something, because you heard, like, Jesse did this, Jesse did that, she did awesome things, she had these great realizations. Well, what about Ian? And I'm just like, well, Jesse did a bunch of cool stuff. I mean, I did do cool stuff. Like, I really enjoyed my first time, but if I came back and said, well, my life epiphany for this period of time is this, it wasn't like that. I just did what I was just doing. I don't know if caterpillars really know what they're doing. They're just eating. They're just munching on leaves. So, I don't know. I assume they're just kind of walking around and stuff. But it wasn't until halfway through the summer of last year's when I finally understood what that season in Peru last year meant, or what it was supposed to mean. Because, there was even a period of time where I was going through intensive devotions. I was reading like chapters and chapters back to back, writing everything. I even attempted to do the here to there thing, but literally zero from God. He was just kind of like, just eat leaves. It's not that hard. Just go eat leaves. And I'm like, no, I need something more like deeper than that. I get that I have to eat leaves and enjoy what's around me and pay attention and like make connections, but I need something more like deeper. And he's like, no, just go eat leaves. So I was like, okay. And it's crazy. Sometimes in certain seasons, no matter how hard you seek God, how many hours you put into seeking God, you hear nothing. And this was a period of time, a period in my life that was happening. So, because people say, well, if you want to hear God, then read the Bible and pray. Well, I was doing all of that, but I was supposed to just eat leaves. So when I came into my cocoon stage at the end of it, I was like, all right, well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it was all for. I just came back and knew I was supposed to go back, so I came back and was just working and stuff. And then in the middle of the summer, I felt like God wanted me to fast. And I don't remember if you guys, I spoke a message before I left last time talking about this thing. And it was this fast, basically, I realized that every fast that I'd ever done before this particular fast was always about getting something from God, or hearing something from God, or trying to obtain something from God. I always was trying to get something from Him, but I never fasted just to be with Him. And it was during this time where I realized, oh my gosh, like, Jesus is kind of like that really rich friend that you only hang out with if you want to eat like fancy sandwiches. I always felt like my rich friends had the best peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, even though it was the same ingredients. I don't understand. So you only hang out with Jesus because He's a rich friend and He can give you stuff. But the second He just asks you to hang out, you're like, no, I got better stuff to do. So during this time, I was fasting because I was like, you know what, Jesus, I don't have a secret agenda. I really just want more of you in this time. So this is my cocoon stage, and when I came out of it and I went into Peru, like, for me, it felt like, it's like, I don't know, I realized, oh, snap, I got wings. So after the DFC, I know Jesse already touched on this stuff, but I'm sure Corey's already touched on this stuff. But I'm just going to touch on it again because you guys need to know like what we're doing down there. So the DFC team came down, and we hosted the DFC team. We did the swing sets, and we did a bunch of inner-city outreach. This is outside of DFC as well. But we did a bunch of inner-city outreach with Vita. We did a bunch of traveler outreach with, and I'll kind of explain a little bit of that later. But we did some more village outreach where we went back to some of the villages where we put swing sets in and did like more contact work. We brought gifts to villages for Christmas with Jesse's mom. She brought in, some of our family out west funded like rain boots for some of the kids and some of the family. There's some other stuff, I forget what it was. She also brought in a camera stand for Vita. So we did that for Christmas. We did a series of workshops right after that about creative missions, and what that means is like they see really Corey's template, however you say that word, of doing missions in a different, really weird way, and just really fun way, and they want that. Of course, what they wanted is to not do the same event over and over, but what they wanted was to figure out, okay, like I've got this in, but how do we go deeper in a creative way? And we really mirrored Corey's template for that, and we also did like a series of workshops for launching a youth group. We planted seeds for possibly bringing Young Life to Cusco at some point in the future. What else did we do? So the guy who lent us his workshop to build the swing sets, he hooked us up with an orphanage that was nearby his house, and we served twice a week for a couple months in that orphanage. And that orphanage was primarily babies, but they did house a boy with cerebral palsy, and they housed a girl with autism. And so what we decided to do is we used Jesse's skills and her background in autism, or working with kids with autism. And she was like, hey, Ian, you need to go build this century swing. And I was like, well, what's a century swing? And basically, it's a swing that like hugs, like it mimics hugs. So it like calms children with autism. And then we also made a PECS booklet. And I'm not talking about a PECS booklet. I'm talking about it's PECS, and it's Picture Exchange Communication System. I don't know why that confused me. I always get that right, except for that one time. But So we did that, and now that girl with autism has a way to communicate with her tias, as they call them, basically their caretakers. And we served and invested in Vita's. I know this is a lot, but at least you know that we're not just sitting around doing nothing. But we served and invested in Vita's worship team and just the church itself. We went trekking in the mountains, and I led my first trek in the mountains, which was really cool and a little scary, I'm not going to lie. And Albino, the same guy with the, Albino with the same guy who did lent us his workshop. And what else did he do? What? Oh, yeah, Connected with Orphanage. He has a ministry who takes kids from the village and gives them an opportunity for work, like fair work and education. And then we also did a bunch of self-ministry, which happens to be like mountain stuff. We figure out like some personal stuff with Jesse. I wrote music. You guys know about that. Do they know about your podcast that's coming? So Jesse is launching a podcast. When? Next Wednesday. She's launching a podcast called Confidently Me. So I'm pretty hyped about that. And then we've done like a bunch of devotions, which most of this message has been derived from. Okay. I know it's a mouthful, but that's over and done with, and I told you what we did. So there's that. Okay. So after all that has been done and everything that we have like completed and whatever, it's like it's all great, but now like you may think I'm crazy, but now I get here to the States and I'm like, now what? And it's really interesting because going along with Jesse's message, we all deal with the passion paradox, as I call it. And it's in order to find a passion, we have to stop looking for it, really. Jesus has to be enough for us. And if he isn't, we can't be trusted even with the knowledge of what we were made for. It's like as long as you are searching for like something to fulfill you, if it's not Jesus, even if it's Jesus' work, he's not going to give it to you. Like you're not going to be fulfilled by it. And like he doesn't want that work tainted by our own secret agenda. Like our fulfillment has to come from Jesus, period. But we know that since we are alive, we all have a purpose and we matter and we have a part to play in this thing called life. And if you don't know, hear me now, you do matter and you do have a purpose. I promise you. This is pretty cool. I have this picture. So these are macaws. I actually Corey took a really cool picture of these macaws, but this isn't the picture. And I was going to ask him, but I ran out of time, so we just pretend this is Corey's picture. Good job, Corey. This is a great picture. But what's pretty cool about these macaws, probably know them as parrots, but the technical term is macaws. But so in the jungle, they come down to the sides of these riverbanks or like the sides of these cliffs, and they eat the clay. And I mean, like, it's crazy because there's hundreds of them, and they all flock to it. And what's not, like, besides that, it's not only the macaws that eat there, but it's other animals. But what's special about the macaws is the clay does two things for them. They, because of the nature of their, like, beaks and stuff, they can eat certain fruits. But what's really cool is that some of those fruits are extremely poisonous to, like, most animals. There are minerals in the clay help break down the toxins of those poisonous fruits. But what else is cool is they hold a lot of sodium in it. And because of the jungle, like Peruvian jungles, they're so far away from the ocean, whenever it rains, the salt from the ocean isn't being put into the jungles. So there's a massive shortage of sodium in the jungle. So that's why you don't only have the macaws who eat the clay, but you have other animals that come over here and eat the clay. And on top of that, like people in the jungles, if they get sick, if they have stomach problems, they'll eat the clay too, because the properties, I don't know, like it just helps heal stomach problems. So it's really weird that they're eating clay. So I say all this to say, look, you are worth more than dirt, so you obviously have a purpose in this life. So I assure you that you're necessary for survival for somebody. So I say all of this. Why am I bringing this up? Because it reminds me of this verse. I know that you all have heard it. It's Matthew 5:13. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. So when I see this, I don't know, sometimes I just think in weird ways. When I read that message, it's like most people are like, okay, like I'm the salt of the earth, so I'm pretty important. Now I need to keep my saltiness, or else I'll be good for nothing and I'll be thrown out and pretty much worthless. I asked the question, said, does salt ever go bad? So I got to thinking, I was like, I don't know. I feel like there's grandmas out there that have salt from like the 80s. Because like you can buy a bag of salt and it like lasts forever and it never goes bad. So I don't know. Have you thought about that? Do any of you know if salt does go bad? No? Okay, so I didn't know either. So I Googled it. Salt doesn't go bad. You know what's really cool is that salt only loses its saltiness as if it's tainted by other things. Salt only loses its saltiness as if it's tainted by like moisture or other chemicals, but in its pure form, it never goes bad. As long as it stays pure, it never goes bad. So what was Jesus referring to back in that day? It was like, okay, well, either one of two things is they didn't have pure salt to begin with, or they were in a weird area, so it got tainted all the time. So I looked it up. Turns out, during the times of Jesus' times, they didn't have like reformed salt. It had some other minerals in it, so if you didn't use it in a specific time, it was thrown out because it would lose its saltiness. But I feel like that just double proves my fact that pure salt doesn't go bad. For me, this hit me so hard that actually one of the songs that I wrote was off of this idea. It's pure salt doesn't go bad. So you can never be thrown out as long as you keep yourself pure. So I got to thinking about is like, our passion shouldn't go bad as long as our passion is Jesus. We should never be unfulfilled as long as our fulfillment is Jesus. If it gets tainted by other things, if it gets tainted by our own agenda, guess what? You're going to lose your saltiness. It's crazy that if we... Dude, oh my gosh. I understand Moses and his stuttering and stuff. If we make an effort to be Christ-like and to not neglect Him, everything we touch should come to life because the purpose of salt is to make things better. This world is literally full of macaws searching for life. They're searching for you because you're the only source of sodium they've got. A friend of mine I was speaking to the other day said, it's crazy, when I first met you, I wasn't a very good Christian. And I thought to myself, during that time, I didn't know Jesus at all. All I knew was that He was a Christian. And He was the only source of sodium that I had. And being around Him, even though sometimes we view ourselves as not very good Christians or whatever, if you're not ashamed of Christ, that's vital for somebody's salvation. We're not called to be perfect. We're called to not be ashamed. We're called to share our faith and make our best effort to be like Christ. We don't realize the kind of life that we bring to others around us And when we show people that we have Christ living in us, all of a sudden, boom, people flock to us. So, do you remember I was telling you about those, the backpacker or travel ministry or whatever? So, my last day in Lima, no, it was my second to last day in Lima, I was surfing because I was kind of debriefing or whatever. And I met these two people. I heard them speaking English. And I was like, hey, you guys speak English. I speak English. Let's talk in English because everybody else here speaks Spanish. So it was a Danish guy and a German girl. And I ended up meeting with them later. And I was just telling them about all the stuff that we're doing. They're like, dude, I can't even believe it. Like, I knew when we were talking to you, I knew that you were a legit guy. I was like, oh, that's cool. Thanks. Appreciate that. He was like, no, you don't understand. Do you understand how hard it is to find somebody who's legit? And I was like, yeah, okay. He's like, no. You are such a legit guy. He's like, I'm so glad I made the time to hang out with you. And it dawned on me, it's like, people who don't have Christ, they don't possess a certain quality that we do. They don't possess a certain saltiness that we do. So, what is the worst thing ever is really for a Christian to lose its saltiness. But if you're here today and you're trying to figure out how to keep your saltiness, I got you. So, I believe we can stay salty by keeping these 3 standards. And I'm just going to give them to you real quick. I didn't make a cool slide for it. But they're really simple. It's stay fresh, stay pure, and stay sweet. So staying fresh is, remember I was talking about earlier, is the only things that can lose its saltiness is if we're unrefined and if we're not tainted. So realize that in our Christian walk, there is a shelf life. And I have a picture of here, these of an egg. So here's an egg. What's really interesting is, and when you're in the mountains and you're trekking and stuff, you normally eat Cliff Bars. And it's really funny. I'm glad that Corey's here because he'll understand, and Jesse too. But Cliff Bars, I feel like they never lose their shelf life. And basically they're like just some type of nasty meal bar. I mean, they're not nasty, but they get nasty if you have to eat them all the time. Like, the first time I ever ate it, you can only eat half of it before you become completely dehydrated, because they're just basically like a powerful oatmeal bar that just sucks the life out of you. But they have an incredible shelf life. They're the perfect trekking food because you can literally stick them in some storage box up in the attic for 20 years and then pull them out and still eat them. I don't know. That's kind of nasty to me. I'm not going to eat that. Corey might, but I'm not going to. But what's really interesting is that if you ever go to Peru or outside of the States, for that matter, you go into markets or whatever and you're doing your grocery shopping and you see eggs, they're not refrigerated. So if you've never seen this before, you look at those eggs and you're like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to eat that. But the eggs are fine. They are super fine. I don't know what it is about us Americans. And I even looked it up on the internet, and they're like, I don't know, we're just weird. Like us in a couple countries, we're just weird. We like to refrigerate our eggs. But eggs on their own, they don't need to be refrigerated. I don't know why we do that, because as soon as we stick them in the refrigerator, they'll immediately go bad if you leave them out too long. But if you never put them in a refrigerator, they don't go bad. So it's like we freak out about our eggs, but we're good eating 20-year-old Cliff Bars. So I kind of got to thinking about this. It's like, this kind of reminds me of how we view our walk with God. Sometimes, if we have a revelation, sometimes we ride on that one revelation for 20 years. Wouldn't we be better off to be our American selves and really pay attention to the shelf life of our revelation. In my opinion, each day has its own sun and deserves its own time with God. The ultimate way by staying fresh is seeking God daily through prayer, devotion, and making sure our heart is always content with who we are first, but also keeping the desire to improve. So I have this verse. It's Isaiah 43, 18 through 19. And it says, "Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth, shall you not know it? I'll even make a road in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." And for me, when I was reading this verse, it was like, it's kind of weird that it says, "Do not remember the things of old," because it's not saying completely forget everything. It's not saying that you can't learn from things, but what it's saying is that I'm going to do something new. So I thought this was appropriate because spring is right around the corner. And because of the messages and the flow of God in this place, new things are coming. Can you agree? So right now, this is another Coreyism. Forget what has worked in the past. With God, there's no formula. Do something new. Keep your faith fresh. Keep the word of God in your hearts fresh. When the new season rolls in, don't let it pass you by, because it can pass you by. Don't believe me? Well, look at the story of Peter. Remember when Jesus told Peter to stay awake and pray with him, and he fell asleep, right? Well, it was for the time of preparation, because he was going to deny Jesus 3 times. This was to prepare him to stay faithful to Jesus. Well, luckily for us, God always says, "Hey, there's always next time, kid." And that next time happened to be the book of Acts, where stuff literally blew up and he became a man up in that faith. You can read that for yourself, but there's that. But now that it's finally starting to get warmer, don't go take hammock naps. I know it's super tempting because it's finally warm, but save that for the summertime. Go do some work before it gets too late and too hot, because now is the time. Now is the time to be in preparation for what's coming. So make sure that your relationship with Christ is fresh as can be. Because when we're fresh with Christ, we naturally want to be pure. So this is the next standard, and it's stay pure. Do you guys ever get the shakes from coffee? Dude, I had way too much coffee today. But I'm not even jacked up. I'm just like crashing, and I'm like, oh, I don't like this. I don't even remember if I ate dinner or not. Okay, so I kind of broke up staying pure into 2 parts. So I'll kind of go through this fast. I don't even know like what time, whatever. But so first part is being refined. And none of us come to Christ with a hint of perfection in our souls. We all know this. We're absolutely broken. And it would take 100 lifetimes for us to even come close. But the beauty isn't the end game. It's the process. And this is why I think my favorite stage in the metamorphosis is probably the cocoon, because it's the only spot that takes only God to be able to do things, right? You can flap your wings and be pretty. You can walk around and munch on leaves, but when you're in the cocoon stage, only God can make that process happen. The second you stop is when you forfeit grace. So hear me again. The second you stop is when you forfeit grace. You step out of God's grace. So I have this verse here. It's 1 Peter 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 7. It says, "These have come so that the proven of genuineness of your faith." This is a mouthful. This is hard to read. I told Hashim earlier, I didn't even want to use this verse because it's kind of confusing. But the idea is the second half, where it says, "Which perishes even through refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." So it's like God, He refines us. So the second that, or if you continue just to move forward, you keep searching God, He's going to refine our hearts and purify us in that walk. It has nothing to do with us. We're just sitting in the cocoon stage, just taking one day at a time, and God purifies us from within. Second part is don't be tainted. I got a verse following that, and it's 1 Peter 1, 14 through 6. I really encourage you to read this chapter because it's just fire the whole way through. But and it says, as obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires when you live in ignorance. But just as who He called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. And literally, there's so many different references to the same thing. It says, be holy because I am holy. There's I don't know, I didn't count, but there had to be over 10 verses where it said the same exact thing. Be holy because I am holy. And nowadays, I know holiness isn't exactly the coolest topic to talk about. And to some of you, it may even seem ironic or kind of an oxymoron that I'm the one standing up here saying that, talking about holiness, because, in the last year, I really took some controversial ideas and I tried them for myself and was wondering what's cultural and what's truth. So I'm not even telling you what's right or wrong. You have the Bible to tell you, you have the Spirit to tell you what's right or wrong for you. But what I'm saying is make an effort to be holy. It's not my job to tell you what to do. The Holy Spirit tells you what to do. I just tell you to listen to the Holy Spirit. That's my job. So what's interesting about salt, other than it's necessary for survival, is that it's the only mineral that we use for seasoning. The rest of them are rocks or dirt or sand or whatever. It's the only mineral that we use for seasoning. But you know what else is cool? It's the only seasoning that isn't organic based. So in both realms, it's the single one that's different from the rest. And when it's used tastefully, pun intended there, it makes food better. And or it can, if it's not used tastefully, it can wreck things. Like one time, I tried to make this dish. It's called lomo saltado, and I put probably 15 pounds of salt on it. I could only eat one piece of chicken per 15 minutes. I couldn't even handle it. So I don't know. I'll try that again, but either way, salt really stands out and is like none other. And we are called to be the same way. We're called to stand out. And this leads me into my third standard, and it's stay sweet. Remember the first two is stay fresh, stay pure. Now we're going into stay sweet. And the best way to stand out is to be sweet. I know this is kind of like a play on words. I don't know. I kind of thought it was cool. Maybe you guys think it's dumb or whatever. But here's this verse. Matthew, I don't know if I put that up there or not. But anyway, it's Matthew 22. Maybe you guys know it. 37 to 39. It says, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. And I got to be honest with you guys, before I went to Peru for the first time, I didn't really have a heart for Peru or for people or for kids or for anything. All I really had a heart for was myself. And I knew that I was called to go, and I knew I wanted to have a heart for it, but to be honest, I was just like, I don't know. Maybe it was just the lack of exposure at that point, And maybe some of us here, we don't know what we're passionate about because we haven't been exposed to our passion yet. I was numb to the world outside of our area, outside of Augusta County and the surrounding counties. And then the occasional Hatteras, North Carolina beach area. I knew I was called to Peru, but I didn't know why, and I was so focused on myself and my needs and what me. And I don't mean to come off with a person with Persian a Persian, a person with missionary syndrome, and tell you guys that you need to change because the world is hurting. Like, I know that you guys are aware that the world is hurting just because you're Christians, and that's what we're supposed to be aware of, but it's different to be aware here than to be aware here. You know? And I was aware here, but I wasn't aware here. Can you see that? I may be too short for that. By the way, I got this laptop last summer. I got this laptop last summer, and I'm so stoked about it. So I think the two most valuable things that I received last year in Peru is this. A love for loving people and what it really meant to alleviate somebody else's pain. And I got to say, like, you know, I really owe that to, you know, of course God, but I owe it to Corey to showing it to me. Like, because if it wasn't for him, I'd be still, you know, who I was 2 years ago. And as a result of learning these two things and learning how to trust God, like really trust God with everything, not just some of things, but everything. These are the moments, these are the stories that you don't hear about on Facebook because they're not really that important to most people. I know I'm here among friends, and I know you guys want to hear this, like these real moments that I had personally. So I'm going to tell you. And I may or may not have teared up, so you can, you know, vote or whatever and guess which ones that I did tear up on and what I didn't. But the first one is when we came back to Peru. We went up into the mountains, and we were walking to the village that we served at last year and whatever. And then the little girl, her name is Uni, she lives there. And she peeked around the corner and saw Jesse walking up. And she literally, from her village, which is like, I don't know, it might have been like a quarter mile away or something, maybe not that far. I don't know, I can't really judge distance. But she like came running and screaming Jesse's name. And that was 6 months ago. This is like a girl who's like 6 or something. And she remembered Jesse's name. We'd only been there a couple times. To me, that's important. When we go into the orphanage that houses disabilities, that some of you may have been in there, when we went into there, and to see some of the kids with disabilities recognize our faces, that meant something to me. When we go up into the mountains and we do all this work for the villagers and whatever, we set up a swing set outside of one of our good friends' house in the villages, and at the end of it, the villagers, or like the mother of the area, handmade us like these extravagant beads and bracelets and necklaces, and gave me like a band for my hat or whatever, and that meant something to me because I know that it was pre-thought. Like we spent time working on her swing set. She knew that we were coming, and she saw that we had come and loved there before, so she wanted to do something. She made that stuff with her hands, and that really meant something to me. On top of that, to the other village where Uni lives at, they also did the same exact thing, but didn't know that this was our second gift. Another moment, and I will tell you, like, this was one of the moments where I did tear up. And I know it was God because God always touches me in the same way. It's like he pulls a nose hair and makes me tear up like that. Like, you know the itch when you get a nose hair pulled? Yeah, that's the feeling that I get. But I was playing bass and in the church, and I was singing Spanish, and it dawned on me, like, my Spanish was good enough to, like, sing in a different language, and I looked around, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm worshiping with an entire congregation that's nothing like me, but they treat me like family. Another moment was when I completed guiding my first trek. It was weird. Through the whole thing, I was just kind of like walking, and then on the last day when we were walking back to the beginning city, or not city, it was more like a town, like I just kind of looked around, I was like, man, like, I really did that. And I know, Corey, like for you, it's just kind of like, You've done that so many times, but I don't know, maybe I don't know what it was like for you for your first time, but for me, like, that really meant something. And I really thank you for doing that. Like, you seriously have changed my life, whatever. But another moment was when we were standing on the, a weird message had kind of been preached. I know I swear I'm going this, I'll be doing soon. But, before we left, the pastor's wife brought us up on stage and was just thanking us in front of, like, the whole congregation or whatever, and, like, for all the work that we've done. And then she started just breaking down and she said, like, I can't believe the love of God has been in you guys to love our community like this. I was like, man, like, for us, it's nothing. Like, I don't know. It's just different. And then just last one is when we were leaving the babies' orphanage. There's a little girl named Luce there, and we just became really connected. I've never been connected to, like, a baby or anything like that in my life, but in that moment, like, I just felt like, man, like, I'm the only, like, man figure in her life. Only. And I don't know. I knew that she needed me in that moment, and that just, when we left, like, sorry. She was so mad when we left, but sorry. It's just when you invest in others like that, when you love deep like that, when you love somebody for an extended period of time like that and you don't stop, like, that kind of love, it does something different. And I'm not saying that you have to go to a different country or whatever. I'm not saying, like, just know that because Christ lives you, you have the ability to love deep. And when you keep pushing that kind of love on the people around you, and you don't stop, like, eventually they break and they're like, wow, like, you really do love me. So here's your challenge this week. Take a chance. And just take a chance and go love somebody. Just take a chance. I know, like, I don't know. I haven't been here in a while. Maybe you guys are tired of just grinding it out, but here I am really just encouraging you to, like, love somebody. I'm just going to scrap the rest of this because I feel like that's all I really need to say. And if you guys wouldn't mind standing with me. I'm just going to pray. Guys, thank you for this message. I thank you for this message, God. I thank you for the opportunity that I've been able to be a part of, not just, like, in this church, but in Peru, and, like, everything that has happened. And, like, I wish I could somehow show, like, a life movie or documentary of everything that I've seen, but maybe that's the point of it. Maybe we're supposed to all go see it for ourselves, God. And maybe that's why you call us to be the salt of the earth and stand out, to make this world better, God. So, God, I just pray that, like, this week that you would give us opportunity, that our senses would be heightened to hear from you. That if we're getting our oil changed and we see somebody just hurting, like, and we overhear a conversation of that they're going through a hard time, let's just stop and pray for them, God. Let's not be ashamed of who we are, God. Even if we're terrible Christians, even if we got our own problems, just the fact that we know you makes us the salt of the earth, God. The second that we stop moving forward and stop trying to be like you, God, the second that we stop listening to you is when we lose our saltiness, God. We're designed to make this world better. We're designed to alleviate pain, God. We're designed to go the distance, to increase everything in our life, not because of our own agenda, not because of our own glory, but because we're designed to show people that there's another way, God. it's moments like those last few stories where you realize that love really comes from you, and that we can only really love one another as if we're loved by you, and that we understand that, God. And I just thank you so much, and I thank you so much for loving us first. It's cool that today's Ash Wednesday. I just learned about it the other day, or yesterday. But what's cool is that Easter's coming up, and we're spending the next 40 days remembering who you are and what you did for us, God. Let's not let this moment pass us by. Let's not let spring pass us by. Let's not wait until summer to start working, God. Lord, I just pray that we would move and act on this. God, I just pray that if any of us are in the state where we don't have a heart for what you're building us up for, God, Lord, I just pray that it would come swift, God, that you would hit our hearts, God. Lord, that you would pull us out of the cocoon stage, that we would be able to hear you, God. Lord, let us open up our ears so that we'd be able to hear you, God. Lord, I just pray for gifts and weird stuff in the Spirit to start happening. Bring forth a new thing, God. This isn't the 90s anymore. It's a new era coming, God. Let's do something new, God. Let's hear from you. So, in Jesus' name, I pray, God, let us love deep. Teach us how to love deep. In Jesus' name, amen. So, thanks, guys, for coming out. I really